Hey, good afternoon. Well, afternoon for me. Just been over to see my friend Michael. Michael is from the same town as I am from, Manchester, and we like to meet and have conversation that's based on where we came. And the beauty of this is that we're able to communicate in a way that we were brought up to do. Michael left when he was a young man and went to New Zealand, and so he considers himself a New Zealander now. I went eventually to America, but first of all, at 15 I went in the army. Now I know that this is old news for anybody who has been watching our videos, but I went in the army when I was 15 as a boy soldier, and it just turned out, coincidentally or synchronistically, it turned out that music was something which I had a natural talent for. And here's the thing, is that music is a hard taskmaster. Music is not an occasional thing. You have to work very hard to get anywhere in music, and my own particular focus was not on music in the end. So I survived purely on the standard that I reached. I survived purely on a natural ability. Now the thing is that you have to take a natural ability, if you're lucky, and you can work on that, and you can be very, very successful. Now, most people think of music and they think in terms of success as being having a hit record or something like that, and it's not like that at all. That's not really what it's about. You can be a working musician and you can earn a great living and enjoy a great lifestyle if you focus on that. Now, for some of the great players, the ones that are known as instrumentalists, it can take a top instrumentalist 3, 4, 5 hours a day to maintain their ability, to maintain their skill level. It can take up to 3 or 4 or 5 hours. Winston Marsalis, he had a brother, another forgotten man's name, Marsalis, and I read somewhere that they took 3 or 4 or 5 hours in order to maintain their virtuoso ability. So no, I didn't continue to do that. Now, it's so funny the way that things go, and I'm sure that if you're out there thinking of looking back on even a modest amount of time, you don't have to be an old fart like me to look back in retro. But if I look back, there were milestone moments where I could have gone either way and been something quite different. So what was the first thing? The first thing, my parents moved around a lot. My mother was a bit of a gypsy. Thank you, sir. And we moved around a lot. This meant being in different schools at different levels. I was never a good scholar, gotta say this, especially in math, which, while I have an aptitude in math at a certain level, I'm not good at anything where it needs basic math. I never learned, big confession, I never learned my times tables because I moved from the place where I would normally have been doing that. So math was never my hotspot. I left school when I was 15, and one of the things that I did just before I left school was I went and tested for the Navy. Now, I really was very attracted to the idea of being a Navy diver. and I would have loved to have done that, but I failed the test, and I think it was because of my very poor math. So later at 15, my father saw me struggling because I'd gone and taken a job and was doing the training for being a coal miner, and I had just about finished my just navigating a narrow place. Okay, I'm through. Thank you, sir. Yeah, so I was actually about to start work on haulage as a 15-year-old at the Bradford pit. I never took the job because I'd taken the exam for going into the army, into an army band, and they'd accepted me. So that was one of the turning points. I became a musician instead of a Navy diver. A little bit of difference there, isn't it? But these are things that happen. I remember at that time reading a lot about how to make your life take the shape that you want. We've all heard that phrase, haven't we? That we create our own reality. There's a little kid who's very happy. Hey! Hey. Hello! Hello, little kids, and sitting in a tricycle. So, suddenly got busy. Okay, so I went in as a musician, and I did start to get some education in the army, which was available to us as boy soldiers. But I went into the band, and I wanted to play something else. I quite like the idea of playing drums, either that or trumpet. But there was no vacancy for that. The bandmaster of the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders, which is the band that I was in, allowed me to change. He wanted me to play the euphonium of all kinds of things, which I didn't fancy at all, and I asked him could I play the tenor trombone, and that was not on any knowledge of my own. That was what the other kids at the little schools for boys that I was in had said, oh, why don't you play the trombone, that's a great instrument, but not the bass trombone, get the tenor trombone. So that was what I did. Now I worked really quite hard in the army to be a good player, and when I came out, here's an irony, and what I was actually trying to say about being a musician. You can be a working musician and do very, very well. When I came out, I was amazed to find that this was true. Prior to coming out, I'd made friends with an extremely clever man who was a research scientist at the Aldermaston Nuclear Centre. Aldermaston was the big research institution, or whatever you want to call that, run by the army. And Aldermaston was where the famous London to Aldermaston march. It was about 40 miles, I think, and they used to march there in protest about the nuclear bomb. And my friend Noel was a research scientist there. Now later he quit, but I remember that when I got my first job, he was amazed that I was earning so much, even though looking back it's hard to get excited about what I earned because it seems such a pittance, but compared to what I had to pay out to live, it was a handsome amount of money, and it was in fact it was equal or greater to what my friend, a research scientist for the government, was earning. So that was an amazing thing. Now, just prior to coming out of the army, I faced a decision there. I didn't enjoy my time in the army. I got somebody else coming up here, another big truck. Don't know whether he can get through, but he can mount the high spot there and squeeze through, I think. Yeah, squeeze through would be the right way to describe it. So, I've been talking to, when I was at the School of Music, I've been talking to one of the student bandmasters who were on course there, something like a 3 or 4 year course at the School of Music. And he said, you know, if you went into the Canadian Army Band, you would be you would go in at the level of sergeant, which is a very well paid position, and you would live not in an army barracks as such, you would live in the sergeant's mess, and that would be quite a different lifestyle, and that would be assured. I considered that very much. I didn't fancy going into that super cold climate, well, super cold for me, so I didn't take that, but that could have been a milestone place. Now, here's the thing. I went on a summer season where I joined a band called the Crackerjacks. You don't know these bands, these are just working bands. George Slater ran that band, a hard but experienced man, and he ran a band called the Crackerjacks, and the way that he ran that was that it was a fun band with lots of silly sketches and little things that we used to do to make people laugh, which I really enjoyed. Thank you. So I was with the Crackerjacks, and I thought that that was a fun thing to do. Later, my second job, I went into the band of the Bertram Mills Circus. I was in the circus band. Don't do any particular fun things there, you're just playing music to the different acts. But I was friendly with various of the artists that were in that, and I considered going on the road with one of the troops, and that was the Clowns, which I liked. It's only in recent times that the Clowns have started to take on this slightly creepy look, because we've had Hollywood doing the creepy clowns who go around killing people in their look. I think of the Joker, who was about as evil as they come, and a deadly killer, and kind of ruined the clown persona, or the way that they're perceived. Personally, when I was a kid, every kid loved the Clowns, so that was my attitude there. I didn't take that for whatever reason, and I went into doing the clubs. When I say I did the clubs, I worked at the Pigalle. The Pigalle was a once glamorous, famous club. It had people like the famous, well, for you old parts, Peggy Lee worked there, and I worked in the band there, but only for a short while, because I'd been interested in doing a very by reputation a very difficult job, which was at the Eve Club, and it was supposedly one of the hardest shows in town. One show that I never got to play in, which I would have loved to, was West Side Story, which for me was one of the best musicals ever written at that time. Anyway, so I went, I did a couple of things where I worked behind Tom Jones in the Johnny Spence, what was the Johnny Spence Orchestra behind Tom Jones then, and I did a night or two as a deputized, we would call them deps, and that was at the Royal London Palladium. And then I ended up getting the job. Sorry, I'm focusing on driving as well in order to finish the video. So there's a group of guys fiddling about by the side of the road, and I ended up at the Eve Club, and I enjoyed quite a time there. But when I did, I started to get my foot in to what is called the session scene, and it had begun to start paying off, and I'd been booked a few times. It starts slow, and then when what I'll call fixers, a fixer would be the one that is required to supply 2 trombones, 3 trumpets, saxophones, and they would tell a fixer what the lineup was and what the kind of gig was, and he would fix the appropriate best suited musicians. And I became one, just hanging on by the fingernails, in the hope that it would improve, and it would have. But something, never really shared this before, I don't think, but something made me turn against the idea of becoming and remaining a professional musician. I was on a session and I saw 2 things. I saw this trombone player that I was booked with, and they'd made a mistake. They'd set the orchestra, they'd set the band, the studio band up for 3 trombones, but there was only 2 trombones booked, me and this other guy, and the other guy is looking at the third stand. Well, in a studio, the stands are beautiful quality, chrome plated and made to last, and he folded the stand up and put it into his case. Said, "That's great, I can use that." So sorry, it's the double parking thing, only people this time on both sides of the road. And he stole the stand, which kind of amazed me. And then this same person difficult one to get out of here. Gotta rely on someone helping me by letting me out. Will they do it? After this one, maybe. Okay, I'm out. So the next thing that I saw, that for some reason it had a really acute effect on me. The man didn't know me, but knew the rest of the guys in the trumpet section, and he leaned over and said, hey guys, have you seen these? And he pulled a packet of photographs from his case, and was sharing. He didn't invite me, so which I'm happy for, but they were porn, pictures of porn, and they were particularly nasty, that I could see even from afar. And I suddenly thought, I don't want to be part of this, because the rest seem to be enjoying it a lot. And that made me think about something that I'd read. When you go into a certain profession, make sure that the people that you are going to work with are people that you would want to have as friends, because if you're going to be in that profession or that career, you're going to spend a lot of time with these people. And somebody with a death wish overtaking me. And I couldn't see myself spending time with people who are doing this. You can call it pompous or arrogant, but that's the way that I felt and was entitled to feel. So it's very busy. You probably see traffic passing in the window behind me. So it kind of took the wind out of my sails, if you want to put it that way. And something part of the ambition of being a musician kind of died there. Right or wrong, by the way. I'm not saying it was the right thing to do, but I was getting interested in other things, which also affected the way that I felt. Now, it's a lesson to learn, and it was something that I still feel is valid, and that is that if you are about to enter into a field of activity in which the people do not seem to be the kind of people over a period of time that you would want to spend a lot of time with. And if they're not, how are you ever going to be happy with those people? It's just not going to happen. So not only do you need to choose what you do with an aptitude for what you do, you really need to look at the people as well and make sure that they are your kind of people. What's the saying? Birds of a feather. I was getting very busy now, so I'm gonna take off. Thanks for listening.